Hey, welcome to Getting Personal with Compt. I'm Lauren, the head of brand and communications. Now, this is a show that is all about uncovering the ways in which we can make the workplace just more human, which I think would be great for us all. If there's one thing that we know at Compt, especially with the recent release of our 2024 Lifestyle Benefits Benchmarking Report, it is that benefits are ever evolving. And what your people wanted yesterday is probably not what they want today. So I am happy to have with me Sims Tillirson because we are going to dive into this, I guess you could call it an evolving landscape, and figure out what companies and brokers can do to stay on top of employee benefits, if that's even possible. Sims, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Lauren. Really glad to be here.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. I want the audience to understand what your expertise is here so that
Yeah,
we can kind of lay the groundwork to dive into this massive conversation.
for sure. If anybody's watching this on video, don't let the backwards hat, open shirt, and tattoos fool you. I've been a high level professional in employee benefits, education, communication, and enrollment for about 10 years. Currently serve as the Senior Vice President of Sales and Broker Partnerships at Blue Raven Actuarial and run my own consulting group where I get to work with the latest, greatest, coolest employee benefit point solution startups.
Love that. So I'm assuming that you said latest and greatest because you're talking to me at Compt.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, it's funny. A lot of the companies I work with, there's not a lot of barrier to entry anymore into the point solution space. So they may be people just with a passion for something specific that they didn't come from this world though.
Yeah.
And they can't afford to pay 250 grand a year to hire a VP of sales or whatever, or a head of marketing. So I help with outsourced projects and kind of outsource go to market motions.
That is the perfect transition because I wanted to ask you, how are companies handling employee benefits, especially considering that you can't necessarily throw more cash at the problem? We've seen benefits budgets and just budgets in general, like all over the place, especially since
Yeah.
2020. Like, I feel like the last 4 years have been some kind of explosion where we think we understand where the market's going and then it pivots in the opposite direction. So, what's going on right now?
Yeah, I'm watching kind of a shrinking in terms of employee benefits packages because to your point, and for good reason, HR leaders and total rewards leaders were given a lot of control and a lot of latitude around budget, around adding new programs through COVID to help people feel engaged, more valued, whatever it may be. But the thing I hear over and over from employers and consultants really that started at the end of last year was, hey, all these point solutions promised us a guaranteed ROI or a guaranteed uptick in engagement. And like no one's measuring it. No one really knows what that ROI means. Nobody knows the definition of what they consider engagement. So the big trend that I'm watching right now is employers and brokers moving to measure in some way, whether it's a navigation tool like Accolade, Quantum, Alight, Healthjoy, whatever, or just like benchmarking data. They recognize they've gone a little too far and they've got to rein this back in. So I fully anticipate after this year, a lot of these folks get some data around what employees are actually using and touching, and then they trim from there.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that I'm sure you've seen and are probably familiar with is that lifestyle spending accounts and marketplaces are getting more and more popular with companies of all sizes so that employees can just say, hey, I know what I want. Just
Mhm.
give me a wallet or a bucket and I'll choose.
Right. What do you think about the maybe oversaturation of point solutions and then how that compares to like what you just said, the bucket that is like lifestyle spending accounts and the flexibility with that? Because I think there's maybe a misconception that offering a lifestyle benefit or lifestyle spending account and more flexibility means like, oh no, too many options. Now I have the paradox of choice. Um, but then you have, if you're a large enough company to be able to offer 100 different point
Mhm.
solutions. Like, how do you sort through all of those things? Like, I can't even keep my like health insurance straight because
Yeah.
it changes every year.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I just left a Fortune company with about 15,000 employees, and we had a fantastic benefits package. But it's funny, even walking through that, and I've been in the business for 10 years, we have benefits I never saw, never used because I never knew they existed. And I think that that's the the problem that something like a lifestyle spending account can solve for. Because at least with an LSA marketplace, take Fringe or Forma, for example, you've got maybe a limited number of vendors, but they're like, there are a ton of them. But you're not necessarily paying to have those point solutions if nobody's using them. They just
Right.
live in the marketplace. So there definitely has to be a happy medium there. And I'm truthfully not sure what it is.
So, in terms of money well spent, though, do you think that offering these extra benefits, whatever they may be, in whatever kind of format they're being offered in, do they hit the mark more often than not? Because we are seeing this movement away from like the traditional benefits and the health insurance, the 401k, the pensions, the
Yeah.
whatever else, to more of these like evolving lifestyle choices.
Yeah. I think they do hit the mark. Benefits people have been talking about this trend and this phenomenon for years now. But with the rise of the younger millennial generation, and then the Zoomers, people want to feel like they're special. And we always talked about it when I sold voluntary benefits. It's like going to order at Starbucks. And typically, your benefits package is like you go to Starbucks, but you can only get a pike. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
you can add sugar to it, but you're just getting a pike. And people want to be able to walk into the coffee shop and, like, I drink super big caramel oat milk lattes, right? And I want that because I'm special and that's what I like. But you may like, an orange mocha frappuccino, whatever it is, right? We want to feel special. So the choice, I think, is certainly a good thing for employees, and they've leaned into it. The the two issues that I see that are the largest in this scenario are, one, the engagement and just awareness issue. We have to be sure that we're communicating with employees constantly, literally year round. And it's not, you do this for a living, so it's not throwing up this benefits information on people. But if you think that three pre-enrollment communications about a new benefit people are gonna remember that, you just don't have a clue about how human psychology works, right? So
Right.
that's the biggest issue. And then I think the other is that, there is, to a degree, a disconnect between leadership teams and just your regular old Joe Schmo worker, right?
Yeah.
So if, an executive team member makes, let's just call it $200,000 a year for ease of this argument.
Hmm.
They might not see value in a financial wellness benefit like Sunny Day Fund or something like that because they don't ever grapple with not being able to pay their bills. So
Right.
maybe they don't add that to the benefits package. Maybe they add some, I hesitate to say this because all benefits have some value, but some fluffy benefit that they think is
Yeah.
neat, but that their employees, they can't get around, like the fact that they don't know if they're going to be able to pay their rent this month, so they don't care, right?
Hmm.
I think those two issues together are causing a lot of kind of the disparity between what benefit packages look like and what benefit packages employees actually want.
Yeah, totally agree. There's this weird disconnect between what everyone thinks is meaningful, especially like from the top down, where I mean we're even seeing it with some of the things that are I guess, trending each year where, right now we're seeing the resurgence of professional development. And some companies are like, okay, great. Well, we already do that. We can upskill people. We offer in-house training. And we're like, no, not like that. And also, what about like professional certifications and licenses and things that you need to pay for to keep your job in some
Yeah.
cases? Like if you're a nurse or a lawyer or something. And I mean, quite frankly, some of those positions, especially like we've seen with frontline workers with COVID and everything, don't pay enough. Now you got to pay for a certification. Like, if you want a professional development me, throw me a stipend or something to
Yeah.
pay for this certification. That would be meaningful to me because now I don't have to decide, oh, well, geez, like, how am I going to pay for groceries this month or keep my job? I got to keep my job. So maybe
Right.
I'll just eat ramen now. Like, there's just not, I guess, the understanding that the that compensation needs to go beyond and look at like total rewards and the full package. We talk about fertility benefits, and I know you've probably seen this with some of your clients. Like, they want to offer these things,
Mhm.
but that also only satisfies a segment of your employee
Right.
population. Like, some people don't want kids, or some people are past that. So, how do you make that like more inclusive and maybe look at instead at like a family benefit or a caregiver benefit? And then you're offering something that fits the outcomes that you're trying to drive, and it fits the budget that you probably have or may not have. And you go from there. So maybe it really is like a philosophy thing, and we need more maybe C-suite people to kind of change their viewpoint. Maybe remember where they started.
Sure.
I don't know what the answer is. Speaking of not knowing what the answer is, the ROI piece. You brought that up earlier. It's something that we are also, as a solution, trying to figure out all
Yeah.
the time. Like, how do we calculate ROI? Like, how do you know if benefits are really working out? Is it just the engagement piece? Is it the utilization piece? Like, what are we looking for?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I would tell you that most point solutions don't know what they mean when they say ROI. Or they don't accurately know how to describe it. When a CFO bears down and says, "What does that mean?" And I think the most successful ROI kind of sales I've seen have have been wrapped around the idea that the ROI guarantee built into a solution has been validated by some third party. So last company I was at, we sold a healthcare navigation product and we guaranteed ROI for certain group sizes, right? And that was validated by a third party consulting company called the Terry Group.
Mhm.
And the conversation changed immediately with CFOs, directors of benefits, even benefits brokers, when we started talking about the idea that, hey, we're not just telling you that we're going to guarantee ROI and you just gotta just trust me, bro. Like we have this methodology validated by this third party and it works and it's real. Here's how we define what an engagement is. Here's how we define what utilization is, and so on and so forth. And I'm not in. This is not an endorsement for that consulting company. I've never worked with them, but I think it is valuable to have a neutral third party validate what your ROI is if it is not clear. Because in some scenarios it is. If you're a surgical center of excellence, you can pretty easily show what your ROI guarantee is, track it, and then show the reporting at the end of the year, right? But for
Right.
for engagement solutions, for instance, it's a lot harder.
Yeah. Oh man, that's how do I unpack this? This is like an onion. There's so many layers. We have the finance team, which always kind of seems to be the roadblock because we're talking about budgets and they need to
Sure.
make sure that money is being spent wisely. Totally fair. We have the HR teams who And I'm using HR really as an umbrella term because we've seen
Sure.
it ebb and flow over time with human resources, people operations, and all of the things that fall within that umbrella. And we have those folks who are more attuned to what is happening in an organization, what people want. They're tapped into all of the places you and I are to try to figure out, like, what do employees want? What is going to satisfy people? How are we going to keep them at the company and stop people from quitting their jobs to
Yeah.
go literally anywhere else? Um, and then you have the other piece of this, like the benefits brokers as the trusted resource. And HR is like really, I guess, bombarded with all sorts of different solutions. How do you know what's the right answer? Do I trust my broker? Do I trust this company coming to me? So, that third party that you mentioned, that is very interesting. How have you seen that play out in terms of like not just with clients specifically, like I'm talking like the in house HR people, but from the broker side of things? How has that influenced the relationships there?
Just in terms of being able to talk through the guaranteed ROI or
Yeah, the ROI and I guess maybe doubling down on like, is this a solution that would be worth it for their clients?
yeah. So I mean, what I would say is most brokers that I know really, you know, the ones that are good at it, they make good money. I'll make no
Hmm.
bones about that. But most of the ones that I know, most of the folks in the business are in it because they do want to solve problems for companies. They do want to help employees. So they're typically willing to listen. But what I would say is that most brokers are pretty skeptical because they're getting outreach, maybe 100 times a day from people like me, people like you, um, and everyone else and their mom and them, right? Because there are so many point solutions in the space.
Right.
We're all making similar claims around ROI, about driving engagement, about improving recruitment and retention. And so at a certain point, it all just becomes noise. Um, and I would tell you that, and I don't know that this is ever going to change, most of these brokers and even customers on the HR and finance side, you're not going to be able to present a solution that is so good that they're going to listen to your pitch and buy if they don't like you or at least trust you a little bit.
Right.
And that becomes more and more difficult as as a lot of us are in point solutions that haven't been around that long.
Hmm.
Because a lot of salespeople, you'll go back to, hey, you may not know me, but our company's been in this space for 50 years, right? To
Yep.
establish that trust. And a lot of us don't have that luxury anymore. So it is interesting. And I'm finding that building kind of stronger, more authentic relationships with all of those people has helped to at least have a real conversation about some of these benefits.
That's a really interesting point that you made about the age of point solutions. I feel like that's something that I knew but didn't even really think about until you said it. Like the light bulb went off. Like so many of these companies are really young. A lot of stuff developed as a result of COVID and people moving to a remote workforce or hybrid. And now even more are popping up because people are going back to the office. And like, how do we, I guess, solve for all of these things? I was going to say XYZ, but it's really the entire alphabet.
It
There's
really
probably
is.
something for each. Um, so we have all of this to choose from, not a lot of budget. Is the name of the game still consolidation? Because that's kind of what we were hearing last year. Like, how do we get all of our tools in one place? Is it worth the risk? Because there is the putting all your eggs in one basket kind of worry, especially as you have new companies coming up claiming they can do it all. Are they're still new? They haven't been around 50 years. Do we know they're going to be around for 50 years? So, what are your thoughts?
I continue to hear that consolidation is the goal, at least a majority of the time. I will tell you that that viewpoint I have mostly heard from enterprise companies, so companies with 1,000 or more employees, and the brokerages that serve those companies, which tend to be the alphabet houses, the big five. So I don't know that everybody in the SMB space believes that, but I know that when we Google benefit trends, that's what we're going to see. It's
Hmm.
consolidation, right? And there are a few reasons for it. One is just the idea that these teams don't want to have to go through procurement for every solution that they bring on board. They've already vetted out a vendor that offers more. They can buy through them, right? And then the other, I believe, is the ROI, utilization, and engagement tracking. Because when you don't have disparate systems, it is much easier to track those things. So I think that's what's driving that right now.
Yeah.
And certainly the hope is if you consolidate, things get easier, but that's just not always the case.
Right. That's I was gonna say, you would hope for that, especially in the HR world where nothing seems to ever get easier. And we've we've even made the promise of like, listen, like we can help you out, reduce administrative burden. How
Right,
many different ways can we say like we are here to make your job easier? But if everybody's saying that, like, at what point is an HR person like, okay, these people are actually going to help make
right.
my job easier? Oh boy. Okay, so we have an interesting piece here to unpack, which is the point you made about Googling and seeing like what trends are coming up and what is really driving that narrative. So, what do you think, based on the actual conversations that you're having, is going to be top of mind for 2024? Especially as you're talking to a variety of different people,
Yeah.
right? Like you're talking to your broker clients, and they obviously have an opinion and are trying to drive certain outcomes with their clients. And then also just like the in-house HR people, or is everything aligned there? Or are we kind of in different planes for what to expect for 2024?
I think like true benefit trends, like what benefits people want and what benefits are going to be added to packages, I think there's alignment. So I continue to hear we're going to go deeper on mental health because we didn't hit the mark over COVID. We're going to put in I'll call them reproductive benefits because there is a focus on fertility, but there's certainly been this very new push for menopausal benefits
Hmm.
for people going through menopause or entering that phase of life. So that's a big one. And then the other one that I'm starting to see pop up more and more is like holistic wellness. So,
Right.
not just a fitness app or not just a way to connect with a therapist, but like whole person well-being.
Yep.
So I think those three trends are going to shape actual benefits that are rolled out this year.
Makes sense. So those conversations are likely happening already,
Sure.
because as we know, open enrollment sneaks up on us every year
It always
and
does.
just pulls the rug out from under you. So what should companies be expecting from their brokers with all of these changes happening, especially if they want to, I don't know, like we say stay competitive, but more than that, but more than that in that like what do I want to say? In truly supporting their people, like in meaningfully supporting their employees.
Yeah, so I think that companies should expect their broker to begin bringing conversations like this up, but by the same token, if they don't, no HR leader, finance leader, anyone should have any fear about bringing an idea like this to their broker to have them vet it out for them. Um, and there are a lot of ways people try to find out what their employees want. I think pulse surveys and things are still in use, and that can be a a decent driver to start. But I think we've always got to watch what employees actually do and marry that data up with what they say they want. So I think HR leaders should be prepared to know what their employees say they want, come to their brokers with those conversations if their broker isn't bringing it to them, and then they should be prepared to actually monitor what this looks like, okay, all of our employees begged for pet insurance and
Right.
we started offering it, and we've got 10% engagement and 1% utilization. And companies, if it is a burden to them financially or administratively, they should be willing to rip those benefits out if they're not hitting the mark.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. If I feel like there is risk there because there are so many shiny new benefits that people might say that they want. Maybe you think you're doing good by your people by offering this thing. You're seeing, well, great, now nobody's offering it. Um, there's like a level of, you kind of have to experiment and see what works, like, and maybe risk it if you can afford it. But like, do it with the intention and not totally blow up your budget, right?
Yeah, and the good news is that a lot of these benefits, a lot of the shiny new toy benefits can be offered on a voluntary basis, right?
Hmm.
So the risk is the administrative burden of installing a benefit, but you may not have any financial exposure or risk as an employer to pay for those benefits. Your employees can likely pay for them themselves. That's not true for everything in this space, but it's certainly becoming more popular. The other thing that I'll mention that's a good way to get a feel for like what will keep you competitive, to your earlier point, is that pretty much every broker of any size, regional or mid-market, and even up above beyond that, at this point, they do benchmarking reports every year. So they
Yeah.
can tell you, for free, you're going to have to sit through a sales pitch. So be prepared for that. But they can tell you for free how your benefits package stacks up to every company your size in your state, in your industry, against the nation, however you want to look at it. And I think the more data points we have on the front, even if they're a little sketchy, like an employee survey, the better, more informed decisions we can make.
Right.
And at a certain point, we're never going to know for a fact that the benefit we put in, if it's not medical or dental or vision, that people are going to use it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's constantly changing. We did a survey like a year or something ago where it was like a sample size of our user population, and we tracked them for over a year. We were like, let's see how these people are spending. How many different places are they accessing, different merchants? And I'm not just talking about like the Amazon, Target, Walmarts of the
Yeah.
world, but like the local coffee shop, the yoga instructor, like the old lady down the street who offers daycare to the neighborhood, like, and you got to pay her. Like, what does that look like? And they accessed at that time, and just that sample size, like over 27,000 vendors. So like the math on that is like, well, people want three different things at all times, and those three things are always changing. So then we started, with our benchmarking, like tracking this, like what does
Yeah.
that look like as a whole, like our entire user population. And last year we were like, okay, 40,000 plus vendors. The one we just released, 70,000 plus vendors. I'm like, you
It's crazy.
can't get you like, if 70,000 plus point solutions, good luck. I don't know. Like, how do you enable or empower your people to do all of those things that are meaningful to them? Like, you collect all of that data and try something and hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, there are ways around. There's a reason that ICRAs are becoming so popular again, even with large companies, because you just give employees a bucket of money and let them go do what they want with it. And even before a lot of these lifestyle vendors started gaining a lot of popularity and traction, excuse me, you'd have a true lifestyle spending account stipend wallet, and you might just have this big exhaustive list of things you could go spend it on. So it might turn into the number of vendors that you just mentioned because
Right.
employees want that choice.
It's amazing to see how things have evolved over time in the workplace, especially as, I mean, COVID was a terrible thing that happened, but almost a fantastic thing that happened for the world of work as we know it. And people realizing, like, no, I have every right to demand more. I deserve more. I'm working hard. I need to not just balance work and life. I need to integrate those things. And there is no um sense in the dichotomy that is work and then life. Like we need to kind of balance these things and not even necessarily on a true scale, but some kind of ebb and flow. So I want to ask you because this conversation is so deep and I know that employee benefits can be so overwhelming because it's an umbrella term. There's a lot to do within that world and so many experts out there that you can reach out to and try to figure out, like, okay, how do I offer the best to my people? So bottom line, I want to hear from you. If someone is feeling overwhelmed,
That's a
where
good
is a good
question.
place to start?
I mean, if you're an HR leader, I would say call your broker. Like you're paying them or your carrier is, and that's what they get paid for to help you. There are also a lot of wonderful, I won't call them mastermind groups, but a lot of wonderful peer groups for HR leaders and finance leaders today. And I lean into groups like that a lot with point solution sellers to say, if I don't know what's going on, or if I see a trend start to pop up that I'm not familiar with, that I bounce these ideas off my peers to get a feel for them, because it's my feeling that a lot of us are probably experiencing the same things, but you in your role are not going to experience the same things I do as a point solution salesperson, right? But other
Exactly.
point solution salespeople will, and they can give me some good community, but also give me some good information to get started.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm part of some of those HR communities. There's like a wonderful place to be. I love just reading conversations and seeing all of the ways in which people are really trying to just make a better workplace for
Mhm.
all. And I also like to point out, like, making a better workplace for themselves too, because they are also employees and they should benefit from the workplace. Oh, Sims, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. If people are interested, they want to learn more about you, learn more about what you do, they need to ask you for advice, they want to network because that's kind of what we're all here to do.
It
How can they
is.
find you?
So I spend way too much time on LinkedIn. So you
This is
can just
true.
find me
So do
on
I.
LinkedIn and search my name, Sims Tillirson there. Connect with me. And all my contact information lives in my About Me or on my banner. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks again. I appreciate your time. And if you would like to be a guest on Getting Personal with Compt, send me an email, lauren@compt.io. I also spend all of my time on LinkedIn. I spend so much time on the internet. So you can reach me there too. I'm sure you've seen me somewhere. I'm always commenting. So send me a DM, follow Compt, whatever it'll take to get us in touch. I'd love to hear from you and I'd love to have you on the show. Thanks. Bye.